Ahoy, Nakama, and welcome aboard, or walk the plank. We're your co-captains, Adam and Ed, and this is the Void Century Podcast. Your weekly deep dive into One Piece lore, lost treasures, and the wildest fan theories from the Grand Line to the Void Century. From ancient secrets to Yonko chaos and fresh chapter breakdowns, if you're chasing Laugh Tale, you're in the right crew. Yarg! Hit subscribe and let's set sail. Hello, welcome back to the Void Century Podcast, here today to bring you episode 45. Unfortunately, Ed was traveling, so we're going to do two chapters in one today. Chapter 1164 of One Piece entitled Davy Blood, and 1165 of One Piece entitled Echo. So on the cover story, we actually see Perona and a rabbit looking like Randolph, which is reminiscent of Whole Cake Island, and we see this rabbit is dressed up like Mihawk, which is why Perona is chasing after him. And he's checking his watch. He's late for a very important date. We actually also see Perona's ghost. They have little bunny ears on, looking really cute. Yeah, so I really like the Alice in Wonderland callback. I really think that this cover page is of note, which is why we're talking about it. So into the chapter, the initial panel of 1164, we get to see the aftermath of Emu piercing rocks and hitting him with the Domi Reversi. This is actually really reminiscent, I think, at least of like a cordyceps mushroom and like a parasite, and we see that because we actually see like Saturn himself being a Gyuki, which is like part spider. He's got like this long, huge tendril coming out of him that's like spearing rocks. And we see that Rox is able to speak, even though he's under the effects of the Domi Reversi. Like, he's able to kind of rebel a bit and have a conversation with Emu, even after being speared, and like Emu's doing whatever he does to flip people. So how do you think Rox was able to resist for so long, Ed?
Yeah, I'm really curious about that as well. I'm not completely certain, but I do think that a big part of it has to do with the strength of his will. We know that Rox probably has one of the strongest, he's like one of the biggest forces of will in the entire One Piece universe currently, at that time, I should say. So like even greater than Roger at this point. Like this was the Rox era, and it was called that for a reason. So my guess is it's tied to his will, his force of will, and like the stronger your will is, the more difficult or the longer it takes to get fully reversied. Also, I think that maybe there might be some sort of like mechanism with the Domi Reversi, at least the way that Emu uses it, to sway you to the black piece, to the dark side, which is that like maybe you have to be like frightened or angry or something like that, and then it feeds off of it, and then kind of like Star Wars, like fear leads to the dark side. So something like that, where Emu takes like a little piece of that like doubt in your mind and then like flips you to the other side, type of thing. What do you think?
So a couple things. I think you're right. We've seen this with Big Mom and her life or treats kind of ability with the tribute. Like if you are impure in your motivations or your justifications, I guess, for your mission, you're gonna go ahead and like give in to somebody else's like will, right? Or like motivations. So it's like real easy to be overpowered unless you're like 100% convicted in what you want, whatever you want to do, whatever that is. We see Rox again. He's got a huge willpower. In the One Piece story, Haki, if you didn't know, is literally your willpower. The stronger Haki you have, the more strength of will you have. And, you know, all the great fighters we see they have really strong Haki, but they're also really convicted in their missions and their ideals and their dreams, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Big Mom, because there's actually a few different instances that we've already seen in One Piece of people kind of getting like flipped, you know, like getting mind controlled. Like we've seen Miss Golden Week with like the circles drawn over their heads. We've seen Tama with the animals. Like we've seen multiple, like there's other instances too. You probably remember some others, but we've seen multiple times, and there's always kind of like a loophole into not being able to get mind controlled effectively. And I think that there's probably going to be a loophole with Emu's Domi Reversi as well. We just haven't really discovered it yet, and maybe Rox was on the path to it. Later on, we do see Eris talking about Rox not being ready yet, which we'll get to. But maybe there is some sort of loophole to the Domi Reversi. And obviously, this is the most powerful of like the mind control techniques we've seen in the One Piece universe yet, because not only do they get flipped and controlled completely by the user, in this case Emu, but also they get like a power boost. So yeah.
Yes, I'm going to love to revisit these like a little bit later. We do have speculation as to like what the loophole is in the Domi Reversi, and also like what the Domi Reversi is in itself. However, going forward though, Rox had a really interesting conversation with Emu upon being possessed, if you will, in which Rox mentioned Davy D. Jones was the king of the world. Like, what is that? So we could only speculate that Davy D. Jones was perhaps maybe the monarch or the king of the ancient kingdom. So Davy D. Jones obviously lived pre-Void Century, potentially knew Emu on like a first name basis and fought against Emu. What do you think?
Yeah, and I kind of just want to explore the ancient kingdom. Like, if he was the king of the ancient kingdom, which I'm not completely sold on yet, but if he was, then what would the ancient kingdom have been like? Because we know what Rox is like. We know that he was, at least, like, he utilized the Davy back fight. So that means that Davy Jones was probably the progenitor of the Davy back fight. So, and also we've kind of seen, so we've seen that in practice with the Rox crew, and we've seen the way that he leads, and it just seems like he utilizes power to get more power effectively. So he just kind of like says like he claims people just by beating them up, and then like we also notice that those people under him, they're not very cohesive. They infight a lot, they bicker, they betray each other, they try to kill each other even. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious. What do you think? Like maybe this was like Davy kind of changed after becoming the king and would have been more of like a normal type of ruler. Or yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that would have worked. But what do you think? What would the kingdom have looked like under Davy?
I mean, if you really want to go to the panels that we see in the Elbaf mural, right? If you think of the depiction that we see possibly of the ancient kingdom in the First Age, like they're literally using like people or like the soul of the earth to like power their cities and their machinery, right? So I think if Davy D. Jones was the king or the monarch of the ancient kingdom, I wouldn't put it past him to be somebody that would use other people in nefarious ways to their own means, right? So I'm saying he's not 100% pure. To your point, what we were just talking about, like with Emu and the life retreat and the mind control, right? So if we think about the Reversi board and Emu's totally black and Joy Boy's totally white, we see Davy in himself is not totally white, even though he's not on Emu's side, right? He's part of what we would used to call the chaotic D's. So he's more susceptible to like being mind controlled, or more susceptible to flipping or going to the dark side, because he's not 100% convinced in like freedom for everybody or being altruistic and all loving and really wanting to share that laughter and that freedom with everybody else.
Yeah, I think that also on top of that, we can look at his hair. That's kind of like a microcosm of what you're saying. It's like mostly, at least in the manga panels, it's mostly white hair with like streaks of black. There's like a good amount of black. I'm not saying that there isn't, but that's kind of like a microcosm of what you're saying.
Even furthermore, if you want to talk about the hair, right? Even if you just look at like a picture of Rox in silhouette before he gets Domi Reversi'd, he's got the wild hair, right? He's got the huge spikes going everywhere. And if you look at Luffy when he's in the form of Nika, like his hair is all like slick and curls. It almost looks like clouds, right?
Yeah.
So it just goes to show like the different dichotomy with them, which is something I love about Oda, because he's like putting it right in the character design, like right in your face. But to your point, like bringing things back all together, I think if Davy D. Jones was the king of the ancient kingdom, I think even furthermore it would have been an even crazier showdown, because this might be a hot take, or this might be terrible to say, but a person that's willing to use other people or nefarious means for like their own power, like their technology, right? It just goes to show that if he was able to gain such a huge military under him and fight toe to toe with Emu and lose, right? Like Emu has to be like all powerful, right? Especially now, like after 1,000 years of really just snuffing out any kind of resistance and really growing your own power and, you know, gaining more resources and more technology. So I really, really wish, I can't wait until we see that final battle. It's going to be really good. However, we know that there's a grievance between Emu and Davy, right? So Emu kind of childishly was like, oh, Davy D. Jones, like he wasn't king. He wasn't a king. Emu's the only king. So any thoughts on that, Ed?
Yeah, so my thought immediately is that maybe Emu and Davy were working together to kind of become the next king, and their agreement was that like X and Y happens, then that means that Davy becomes the king, and that might have happened, and maybe Davy D. Jones held like basically declared himself king very briefly before Emu overthrew him. So like you know, like within a day or within hours or something. So like maybe he did end up being king, and what Rox said was true, but he was overthrown like very shortly after. That's kind of like what I'm going with right now.
So follow me here, right? So at least in my head canon, so Emu, as in like the leader of the 20 kingdoms in the world government, like they're human racists, right? They don't like the other races. The ancient kingdom really likes intermixing with the other races. I do think, all right, so much like the world government is like a confederation of kings, but Emu is like the one true king. I think it's also possible that the ancient kingdom was very similar, but there were kings of the individual races, right? And I think maybe the humans that were affiliated with the ancient kingdom, perhaps Davy D. Jones was like the king of the humans. And perhaps he was swayed by Emu, could have been a mole for Emu in some way. But we do know, based on the stories that we know of Davy D. Jones, I think he betrayed his crew or stole from his crew and thus was cursed by a god.
Yeah, and you know, honestly, I'm just more and more thinking that Emu wasn't like Emu was actually a human before this, and he wasn't like always immortal, and he was the recipient of the Opi Opi no Mi like immortality operation, and he inherited a fruit, or he ate a fruit and got his, you know, demonic powers that he's using. I'm not exactly sure, but we know that he's not just using fruit powers. We know for a fact that he's using some sort of like black magic as well. So maybe the powers that he's been showing us so far has only been these like chaotic magic or black magic powers and not actually fruit powers.
So we know the fruits have their own will, right? So do you think like this devil fruit like seeked him out in some way? Do you think again, do you think it's the power of a devil fruit, or is he not just like one of the gods that we've heard about in the One Piece story in the literal sense, not right. Like somebody like that calls himself a god, but a literal god, like OG god?
No, I think my thought right now is that he got the water god fruit. So we got the sun god fruit with Nika. I think that Emu has the water god fruit. But I don't think that he's the original god at this point. I think that he is a human that got immortality. But, you know, I again, this is just speculation at this point. I'm not saying this is fact, but that's kind of like my theory currently, is that he is a human. He got Opi Opi no Mead, and he has the water god devil fruit.
I think it's very likely. Again, you have the whole Emu Umi, right, with the sea. So I think it's very plausible, especially somebody who's eaten a devil fruit gets the wrath of the ocean, right? However, I think it's very interesting because as a fandom, we've always had the question, well, what if you ate the water devil fruit, right? And I think perhaps Oda set it up from the beginning that the ocean itself might be the big bad, right? As we found out, like the ancient kingdom was literally sunk after the Void Century. The seas rose something crazy like 200 meters or something.
Right, and another interesting thing about Emu is we don't necessarily know his name. We know his family name is Nerona, but Emu might just be like a title he gave himself, and it might not actually be his name. So we don't really, there's not that much known about him even still. Like, so yeah, there's just a lot of unknowns.
Well, they also have the El Baffin library that's currently on fire. I think that is probably the last place that you would find some information about Emu, right? So,
Right.
be very interesting to see, like, exactly Emu's backstory, like who or what Emu actually is.
Yeah, and moving forward, like why was he terrified? Like he's terrified about the Davy clan, like and the Buccaneers even. Like what scares him about them exactly? About Emu? I'm not exactly sure. Because yeah, maybe it was some sort of agreement that he backtracked on against the Davy clan. I'm not exactly sure. What do you think?
So I think it literally has to do with the curse, right? And I think the Davies have come to collect on the curse, right? So like Emu
Oh,
cursed the Davies, and the Davies like sworn vengeance or swore a curse upon Emu, and like we see time after time after time, like the Davies just keep slipping through his fingertips, right, for the past thousands of years. So I forget like he's trying to snuff out all the Davies so that the curse or the prophecy can't be fulfilled. So, perhaps the prophecy is one day a member of the Davy clan is going to come and kill Emu, right? Because even when we saw that Rox met Emu face to face for the first time, Rox is like, oh, I'm going to be back and I'm going to be back to kill you, right?
mm.
So perhaps those were just things that that are muttered by the Davy representatives over centuries, right? Like, I see you, I'm here, I'm coming to kill you, I'm coming to collect this debt. This curse is real, you better be scared. That kind of thing.
I like that a lot, and I think that I would be very satisfied if Blackbeard was the one that ends up slaying Emu and not Luffy. Like I think that that would be very awesome storytelling at this point, just with this backstory. And yeah, that kind of might just fulfill like the dream of the Davy clan and that promise that Rox was mentioning about. So, with that being said, do you think that Emu is more frightened of Davy D. Jones or Joy Boy? They actually Rox was asking Emu that himself.
So I think what terrifies him the most is this is crazy. The dream of them working together, right? Because even here we see them fighting each other. I think in the past they fought each other as well. I think I don't know. Maybe we're alluding to Blackbeard softening up, and maybe Luffy finding some kind of agreement, right?
Well, we did
So
see them fighting together against Saint Saturn, remember? So we saw both Rox and Roger, along with a bunch of other people, but they did team up together to fight against Saturn.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, so maybe that's what's required to put Emu in his place.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree with that, and also I think to add on to like the previous theory of the Davy, if the Davies' promise was to slay Emu, I think that that might actually tip the scales towards Emu being a little bit more frightened over the Davy clan because what it- like Emu understands how the world works in this universe. So like when a dream is alive and it gets passed down, like that means that that's still a potential, is still a possibility. And not until all of the Davies are wiped out does that possibility go away. So I think that at this point we don't see him really talking too much about like at least in this God Valley flashback, he seems more afraid of the Rox clan. And maybe it's just because they discovered members of the Rox clan on a remote island, and that's why we're talking more about them. But right now, it does seem like he might be a little bit more afraid of Davy.
So I think at this point, I think the only way like Emu can be taken down is with the power of Joy Boy, right? And the giants in some way. As we see alluded to a little bit later. I'll go ahead and I'll try to explain more, but I think Joy Boy is kind of the key to the anti-Domi reversi, if you will, or like the loophole that they spoke about. But so the dream of Davy, like Rock spoke about the dream of Davy, right? I'm sorry if I'm pulling it back. I just really wanted to know exactly what is the dream of Davy. Is it just vengeance, or maybe like the king had a dream before he was corrupted in some way?
I think that his dream is probably very similar to Joy Boy's, which is just being free and being able to live your dream and your like of your own free will, like assuming that you're not like hurting anybody else. But yeah, I think that they kind of both share a very, very similar dream. Like maybe Davy, on top of that, wants to be the king of the world. But that doesn't really seem like Rox's motivation at this point. Rox's motivation seems more about overthrowing the world government and Emu, uh, as opposed to becoming the king himself. So, and in that regard, I think that again, both of their dreams are kind of aligned at this point.
So I think the dream of Davy and Rox's motivation. So I like to think the dream of Davy was like pre-corruption, pre-Domi Reversi. And I like to think Rox's current motivations might not be Davy's dream, might only be accomplished after Rox fulfills his mission in taking out Emu. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can see that. I think that that makes sense as well. But yeah, let's move forward to the next section, which is why does Emu need giants? So we we know that Rox is standing up for Harold when they're talking with Emu, but like, why do you think that Emu wants the giants?
We could talk about like Attack on Titan and like shaking the world. I think it's beyond just like a massive physical force. There has to be something with the prophecy. Maybe they just make like the perfect fighting pieces on the battlefield. So if we think about the ancient giants and Ors, right? Like Ors was the island puller. Ors could physically like reshape geography. I think maybe that's what it's alluding to, kind of. Like if you're going to reshape the world in your own image and how you want it, you would need some massive physical force that's capable of doing it. If you're going to do it physically and not just ideologically, right?
Yeah, I think that like that could also be done with certain devil fruits as well, like a team of devil fruits, not just giants. I think my my belief with why he wants the giants is more so that they're really excellent shipwrights. They know how to build excellent ships. They're excellent at navigation skills. Like they taught the rest of humanity how to navigate better, um, and they're very physically powerful. So I think that it's really to you know bolster and make the Marines or world government stronger more than anything else, and just have them be like a police force and help conquer nations more easily. That's what I think. And then also like for like the inevitable final battle, like Emu would have a stronger army in that battle as well.
I think so. We do see the giants in the final panel in the mural on Elbaf. We also know that the Giants as a race and Elbaf as a place is actually one of the oldest places that we've seen in One Piece. One of the most ancient places that we've been exposed to. That's where the mural is, that basically details all of this. To your point, I do think the Giants are excellent shipwrights that might be a bit overlooked. We know Tom is like the best shipwright that we've seen in the entire series, who taught Frankie, who's like the best shipwright we know of right now,
Right.
with techniques from the Galilei band, which were like a team of well-known shipwrights all along the land. I think if you're going to have a fight on the ocean, you need the world's best shipwrights, right? To build the world's best ships.
Yep, I agree. Totally agree. Okay, so let's move forward with Rox's transformation. So at this point, the Domi Reversi is starting to take full effect, and Rox is losing more and more of his control over his own body. He's starting to grow much larger than he used to be. Typical Domi Reversi stuff. He grows giant wings that look Lunarian potentially or demony. They're just big black wings, and yeah, I mean they're covered by his cloak, but eventually we do see his wings kind of like stretched out. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool design. And his face looks very demonic. His like teeth grow, kind of like Bartholomew, but like larger, longer teeth. Uh, yeah, anything you want to add on that?
No, I just think it's very striking how much he looks like a Lunarian, and typically what you would think a demon to be. His character design really reminds me of Akuma from Street Fighter, and now he's getting
Yes.
like the fire in his eyes, like the literal fire in his eyes. I think it's just if you want to look a little bit more deeply into it, I think it's really reminiscent of like King, who might not have fiery eyes, but like his whole thing is fire, right?
Yeah,
And
but so like King also doesn't have demonic teeth, so I'm not 100% sold that this is like Lunarian necessarily, but I'm not gonna rule it out. Like does his skin does kind of change to be like more tan looking as well. So well, at least there are scenes with it, but then there's other scenes where it just looks white. So until it's actually colored, we won't really know specifically. But I'm not on board necessarily that this is kind of like the same as Lunarian. But I'm not gonna rule it out either.
so I will say we've seen giants next to normal giants, or excuse me, we've seen giants next to ancient giants, and we've been able to see the differences.
Hmm.
And ancient giants aren't necessarily always controlled in a state of domi reversi, right? I think it's very similar to perhaps the Lunarians and like the Shandorians, right? So maybe like the progenitor of the Lunarians was flipped in some way in the
I, I
past.
I think that
So
the Lunarians are flip Shandorians. Yeah,
I do too.
I don't think that Rox is either.
No, all right. What I'm saying is I don't think he's a Lunarian. I'm saying he has very similar features to one. I'm just
Sure. Yeah.
saying this is evidence for the theory that Shandorians are flipped Lunarian.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm completely on board now that I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
If you think about it too, Shandorians, what do? They praise the sun, right? They worship the sun. If you think about the Lunarians, they worship the moon, right? So it's very
Sure.
similar. Two sides of the same coin.
Sure.
But yeah, I do like the character design. I think it's very striking. The panel where his face is like reared back and you see like his teeth growing is nightmare fuel.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and he's just kind of like beating up Big Mom, like low diff Big Mom, and then he has like a strike against Whitebeard. You want to describe the strike against Whitebeard?
Oh, I just think it's nutty. Like this is a huge feat on Whitebeard, and if you weren't paying attention, then you should be paying attention. But Whitebeard, literally out of nowhere, he's like, I don't even need the Bicento. Literally goes straight up against rocks, full demon rocks with his sword, slashing down with two hands on Whitebeard, and Whitebeard just puts up his arm and hits him with the Gura Gura powers. It literally shatters half of God Valley. That is sick. I love it. And to your point, this isn't even peak Whitebeard. Like, what the heck? How strong is this guy? Like, he is that guy. He
Do you
is that
think?
guy.
Yeah, he is that guy. Do you think that Whitebeard was the one that destroyed half of God Valley Mountain, or do you think that it was like the strike from rocks, or do you think it was a combination of both? Because like there is like a giant hockey like wave that's emanating out of the mountain as well. So I'm it's not 100% clear to me who actually broke off half of the mountain. What do you think?
I'm going to say regardless. So he uses his Gura Gura powers to block. And
Yeah.
half of the Conqueror's hockey in that clash is from Whitebeard anyway. So I think Whitebeard, he's the majority. There you go.
Oh, you think it's mostly Whitebeard? Okay, okay. That's interesting.
No, I think so. Like, if you think of the Clash, right? If they're both 50-50, half of it has got to be coming from Whitebeard. Plus, he's got the earthquake powers. So I think
Sure.
that would be more likely to level an island or a mountain than just a normal sword slash.
Yeah, and like honestly, it doesn't look like it's not very clear, but it doesn't necessarily look like it's like a clean cut necessarily. Like where the mountain gets severed. It looks like it could be like through like a rock slide or something like that. So I can see it kind of going either way here, or maybe I'm under the belief it's like a combination of both. But to your point, we have seen Blackbeard with giant hockey attacks and like in the middle of God Valley, and it doesn't cut off half of the mountain. So I can see it being Whitebeard doing this. Yeah.
And if you think about when Whitebeard was introduced, right, Sengoku said he was literally a man that could level entire islands. And boom, we've seen it. Like, that wasn't just legend. Like, we see the feat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whitebeard, he's such an OG. Like, he literally destroyed half of God Valley. I guess we're gonna go into the second half of God Valley a little bit later. But if you look in a couple panels again, in the background, we actually see a character. We see that same character repeating that looks like Kid's dad. So do you think Kid's dad could have been on God Valley? And what's like the ramifications of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very plausible. Like, we've seen so many powerful figures. We know that Kid grows up to be one of the strongest pirates of his generation. So I could totally see his dad also being one of the strongest pirates of his own generation. So, yeah.
All right, I got it. I just figured it out. So if you think about it, right, Captain John currently has the magnet fruit and he's injured and he's trying to get off God Valley. What if he makes like a pact or a deal with Kid's dad, who eventually becomes his crewmate, who betrays him and ends up killing him and taking the fruit, and then Kid eats it?
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah, that would explain how Kid got his fruit. Yeah, I like that.
Love it. So if we go on a little bit further, right? So Eris comes to meet up with Roxy Zebek in his full, like, flipped demon form. And she's like, oh, honey, I guess you met up with Emu a little bit before you should have. Such a shame. Like, what do you think that's supposed to mean? Like, we know Eris has, like, a special bloodline as well. She could know about, like, the ancient history and, like, exactly what or who Emu is. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so when she says you look just like ... I'm thinking she's talking about the grandfather and grandmother from like a couple like 1 or 2 chapters ago. And so she's realizing, oh, like she's already seen people that she loved get flipped before and they grew bigger and demonic looking. So I'm thinking she's like, oh, this happened to you as well. Damn.
Dang, you totally deflated me. It's a shame, but I think you're probably right. I also think that maybe if she does know, like, the previous history, then perhaps somewhere there's a depiction of Davy D. Jones post-curse, and he looks very similar.
Yeah, that's totally possible. Although, like, we know that she joined the Davy clan later, so either this was, told to her, like, when she got on God Valley initially with Teach, or, I don't know, maybe just her special bloodline already knew about this.
That's what I'm thinking of. Like, perhaps if Davy D. Jones was king, then maybe that's like one of the stories passed down, maybe through her bloodline, is like, oh, there used to be a great king. He was known as like Davy D. Jones, right? He lost to this crazy monster. But I think she alludes to knowing a little bit more than what she should, right? She was like, oh my God, Teach, we have to jump into the sea. We'll even jump into the sea and swim away if we have to get away from you. Like, does it allude that this is some kind of devil fruit power? Or she knows that rocks might be susceptible to the sea in some way. Maybe the D's, or not the D's, sorry. Maybe the Davies were the original cursed ones that couldn't swim, right? Because of the curse. That's why they have to live on the bottom of the ocean, apparently, for Davy Jones, right?
Maybe Zebek has a devil fruit, potentially, even, that we just don't know about. So if they jump into the sea, then, like, he can only sink. Like, he gets his power sapped, potentially. But also, I also want to talk about Eris mentioning how he had to face off with Emu before, like, he was ready. Like, it was too early, wasn't it? So, like, what does that necessarily allude to? I'm not exactly sure, but my thought is that he was also trying to collect multiple devil fruits in order to fight Emu, just like how Teaches. So I think that he wanted to have like the devil fruit on Elbaf to help him, and he already had the Gura Gura no Mi with Whitebeard, and maybe there was another devil fruit that he currently has, and he just didn't have all the pieces before he could fight against Emu yet.
So think about it, right? Like, if you're Eris and you know about the curse of Davy D. Jones and how, like, the bloodline is just wanting to, like, collect on this debt, right? Then you would already know, like, what Emu is, or, like, have some kind of idea of, like, who Davy is swearing vengeance again, right?
Right.
So I do think that they might have some kind of knowledge. I do think that, to your point, I do like the idea of Rox is just trying to collect, like, all these devil fruits, but if that's the case, that still doesn't explain how one person can eat more than one devil fruit, right? So like if Rox is really trying to collect all these devil fruits, what, he's just gonna like eat them all and explode like that? So there must be like, if it's not like a special body or some kind of genetic thing, maybe there's like a special technique that only like Eris or the Davies know, and maybe that's part of like collecting in the curse is like, oh well, you need like the 3 strongest of all these fruits, right? You have to eat them, and eventually it becomes like the super mega fruit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think potentially, at least with so with Blackbeard, we know that he's got a special body, and that's what allows him to hold multiple fruits. We never heard anything about that with Rox yet, so I'm thinking with him, maybe it's just having multiple members with the specific fruits that they need, and then they can do their like combined attack or whatever. But with with Teach, it's a little different.
So I think part of the prophecy might be like Davy and Joy Boy like working together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though we know that Roger and Rox are rivals in some way, they don't seem to like hate each other. They just seem to like be really strong and like idealistically opposed, but it seems like they like sparring against each other, right?
Yeah.
Like Roger even shows up on Hachinosu and it's like, hey Roger, you know this is my island, like what's up bro? Like you didn't kill him on sight as if you would an enemy. So I think part of that is like all of them working in harmony. And to your point, if I think if I think Rox is searching out like these 3 devil fruit, I think that missing fruit is probably the fruit that Harold has, right? Which is why he tried to like court Harold. I think he needs the giants in some way, but also I think that fruit which Loki ate, right, is really key to like the whole puzzle. And I think going forward, like Luffy is gonna have to work with Blackbeard in some way to defeat Emu.
I'm really hoping that Loki's fruit is one of like the ancient gods, like the sea god, the water god. Sorry, the sea god, the sun god, stuff like that. I hope that Loki's is one of those, maybe the earth god or forest god or something. That would be pretty cool, but yeah, we won't know until it's revealed, which it's not going to get revealed until after this flashback, unfortunately. But I think the flashback's almost over.
Yeah, we find out it's like an ancient paramecia type sock fruit. It's like, okay, like you built it all up for nothing. Like, Oda, come on.
No, I hope it's something like an in-universe god. That would be really cool. But yeah, moving forward, eventually, like Eris and Teach are running towards the ocean. There's marine ships firing cannonballs at this mother and small child, right? And behind them, Rox is, about to swing his sword and literally about to slay both of them in one blow. And from out of nowhere, Kuma comes in and he poofs both of them, and then he poofs himself, and so they're all off the island.
I think Kuma, MVP for One Piece right now at this point. He saved like half of the whole series. Like, he really is taking that whole religion thing to heart, and like Jesus saves, right? Because he's killing it. He's killing it.
He really is like one of the biggest, like best support characters in all of One Piece, with saving people, being motivational towards people. Like, this chapter has really shown like the heart of the revolutionary crew. Like, we've seen Dragon, we've seen Ivankov, we've seen Kuma, and all 3 of them in these 2 chapters have done like so much. Like Ivankov is kind of like the ideological and like saying the right things. Kuma is kind of like support and doing the right things. And then I guess Dragon is just more so like the leader type and like really doing his best to be the, like a hero and trying to save people that can't save themselves as well. Like, he's kind of like a combination of the 2.
Yeah, I think we really going to see a lot of Dragon this chapter, and I really love his character. I can't wait until he actually meets Luffy in some capacity where they can have like a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
But that is a great callback. Like, this chapter is really showcasing like the roots of the revolution and exactly the motivations of each of their key elements and really what they bring to the table, and it's showcased. But I feel so bad for Kuma. Like, he literally gave everything.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And he's still giving, even as a robot. He's punching Gorosei in the face, right? Do you think Teach remembers? Do you think Teach knows who his savior is?
Yeah, I think 100% Teach remembers. Yep. How can you not? Like, this is like a core memory for sure. Also, I'm really sad that the last time Teach saw his dad wasn't what we said last chapter, but instead it's seeing his father in this demonic form. Like, that breaks my heart for Teach.
Well, this might not be the last time he sees his father.
Dun dun dun. We'll go over that later though at the very end.
All right. But all right, I just want to say I think it's really crappy of Teach if he does know that Kuma saved him, because, you know, he tried to like enslave Kuma's daughter and she was just a child and like all that stuff. That's kind of gross. Like,
he probably didn't know that Jenny is his daughter though, because they're not biologically related, so they don't look like each other.
Bonnie.
Bonnie, not yeah.
Well, just because Rox is redeemed doesn't mean Blackbeard's gonna get redeemed, okay, man? All right. But going forward, I really like that panel of like Garp and Roger calling out Rox directly. Like, they were so pissed off, they like literally called him out with like hockey crackles and stuff. Like, real recognize real, right?
Yeah, I really like that a lot. And yeah, like, this is like towards the end of the chapter 1164, but yeah, they're basically ready to fight with each other against Rox, and this is gonna be one of the most epic fights in all of this series, and y'all, we're gonna talk about it real soon.
Yeah, so when they're facing off with Rox a little bit, they notice that like Rox is being controlled, but he could still communicate to them with like the voice of all things. Like, what's the deal with that? So I think it's kind of confirmed that the voice of all things really is just like a extreme hockey sensitivity, like observation like 3.0 maybe, right?
Yeah.
So like you can see back in time, but now you can hear everything, and we've kind of seen that a little bit. Like, I know it's not confirmed, but like Fujitora has like really adept observation hockey. I wouldn't be surprised if he has the voice of all things going forward. So
wait. I want to go back to the voice of all things a little bit. So yeah, we see that Rox is physically crying as well. So like, even though he's being controlled and like attacking them, like, he is physically crying, and like, he's, you know, in his mind saying, "Please just kill me."
So we can touch on this a little bit later, right? But so I think the Domi Reversi is really maybe like an advanced Conqueror's hockey technique where you like inject Conqueror's hockey and control somebody's brain. But hockey itself is like your soul, right? So it's like the disconnection between like brain and soul, right? So just because you can't control his body and he's fighting all these people and he's trying to kill like his wife and his child, right? Inside, he's aware of what he's doing, and it's, you know, he knows exactly what's going on, and he's trying to communicate, or at least to do what he can. But
yeah, more on observation hockey. I wanted to just bring up that, like, you know how like you're saying observation hockey like 2.0, 3.0. My headcanon is that there's kind of like different branches of hockey. So each hockey has like, you know, different groups. So I think that like part of observation hockey, you can like just the base branch, you can see like a further distance, let's say. But then there's like two branches that come off of that, which is like, one is like being able to like see like glimpses of the future, and then a different branch is being able to hear the voice of all things. I think that it's like the same observation hockey at the root, but like you train different aspects of that observation hockey to get a different path and get different effects and different abilities.
I could see that. It might not just be like linear, as kind of I'm thinking about it. I do understand, because we do see characters that have certain perks, right? If we're going to think about it as a skill tree, they have like certain perks in like, and they get one skill, but they don't necessarily get all of them, right? So like we see like Momo or Shirahoshi have the voice of all things, but they don't necessarily have like future sight, right?
Exactly.
So I think that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
100%. Good catch.
All right, moving on to the next chapter. You want to just go over the cover page real quick?
Sure. Actually, let me go.
Oh, the cover page is just a meme, another meme one. So it's just, it's called Beepo Peacefully Sleeping Using Zeus as a Pillow. And it's got Beepo sleeping on Zeus and then Law sleeping on Beepo. And it's really cute. They all have like little like snot bubbles coming out of their nose.
And so do you think there's
also a giant sheep a giant sheep that all three of them are sleeping on the very bottom. I just noticed, and all the bird. There's a bird sleeping too. That's really cute.
I was just gonna say, do you think they're doing this in heaven right now?
Maybe Skypiea.
Well, no. I mean, we haven't seen Laura Beppo, right? They last faced off with Blackbeard, so maybe they got as well.
No, I don't think that this is canon because Zeus is in it as well. Like, is Zeus dead? I don't think he's dead.
It's true. It's true. But those damn swirls again, Ed, they're following me everywhere. But moving forward, we actually get to see Roger, we get to see Garp, and we get to see Rox clash off, or actually face off and like clash with each other. And we see Roger and Zebek, they want to clash with swords, while Garp is punching Zebek like right in the face. I think that's a really cool panel.
Yeah.
Really awesome to see. This is like probably like the strongest clash we've seen in like the whole entire series. And it's actually really cathartic to me, at least, to see Garp just punch Rox right in his freaking face.
Yeah, these are like Conqueror-coded punches and Conqueror-coded like swords. So it's not just a normal hockey punch. This is like the strongest kind of punch we've seen up to date in all of One Piece. Even like Luffy does this too. He learned how to do this in Wano. But yeah, this is Conqueror-coded, which it's cool that Garp is confirmed to have Conquerors. I think it was already confirmed earlier, but it's just cool to see.
So you're saying Zebek is not just getting punched in the face, but he's getting punched in the face!
Yeah, basically.
So yeah, I think this is probably the strongest clash that we've seen thus far, and like this is the most amount of hockey that we've seen like released in one clash. To your point, so much hockey that it actually destroys the second half of God Valley, or like the other point of the mountain, right? And we see this clash is so powerful, the skies have split open themselves, right? The skies are rended in twain. So we've seen this feat similarly when Shanks and Whitebeard faced off. So I think when Roger and Whitebeard clashed too, we saw it again.
Yeah, and like the clash is this time Whitebeard is not involved because at this point, they're telling that the Rox pirates and the Rogers pirates were being told, and the Marines, they're all being told to just kind of run away and get off the island as soon as possible.
Oh yeah, well because, stuff's about to go down. Like Kuma's out of commission, right? Like he's gone. Like he already saved everybody he could. Oh, but we didn't talk about it yet, and we'll talk about it later, but we see that Dragon actually mutinied and commandeered a ship to get the rest of the people off. So now the stage is set for the final showdown, right? So
Exactly.
Here it is. And so we see just like a crazy amount of Conquerors hockey. I think it's very interesting that like Rox being like the boss is like fighting them like each their own preferred style, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like he's going at Roger with a sword and he's like physically fighting Garp even though he's getting punched in the face. I just think, have we seen something like this before in the past, right? Is this like something that has been happening since pre-Void Century, right? Like every time these three get together, they always face off against each other. I think like really the whole key is like the three of them working together in some way.
I think that this probably did happen like at the beginning of the Void Century, the epic fight back then as well. It probably happened with Joy Boy, again Emu, and then Davy. So like those three probably did have like a similar clash back then too.
I think this is something that's been repeating throughout time, right? I
At
definitely
least two times before this, yeah.
So Insanity is like doing the same thing over and expecting different results. I think the thing that really flips is going to have to be like Blackbeard and Luffy working together in some way. I mean, if not, it's just going to be the same song and dance, the same thing we're watching right now, right?
Well, right now, yeah, the issue is that the Davy clan member got Domi reversied, so he obviously he can't fight with them this time. So yeah.
I think the Davy clan member previously got Domi reversed as well, which is why this keeps happening, right?
It's possible, yeah.
But I don't know. I think that one of the curses of being a Davy, right, is like you're more susceptible to like the darkness or the chaos. Like, but to my point, like I don't see Blackbeard being completely altruistic. I don't see him being able to hold it together where he doesn't get Domi reversed.
Yeah, he seems very evil already. like he's been portrayed as like an evil person so far.
So, do you think that if Blackbeard was not trying to do everything to chase this power so that he could avenge his father, do you think Blackbeard, after he fulfills like his father will finally be able to focus on like the dream of Davy? I think, okay. So, again, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think that if Luffy can play a part in influencing Blackbeard in some way to like let go like some of this stress and to be free, right? And to like actually enjoy himself, I think that Blackbeard can be redeemed in some way if he's not just chasing vengeance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know he played a part in like killing Ace, but I think if his whole life wasn't tainted with the vengeance of like losing his father and not being able to sleep because it's perfect. Because the only dream he has is that of like revenge, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to focus on his own dreams because this curse has been replaying for 1,000 years to the point where he practically saw his father die. That's the last thing he saw, is like his dad going all out, turning into a demon, and then dying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Okay, let's actually move forward. So, yeah, everyone is starting to scramble off of the island. So we see the Rocks crew. Obviously, Rocks is controlled, so they're kind of all scattering. And this is the end of the Rocks pirate, the end of the Rocks era. They're all kind of going their separate ways. Like maybe one or two of them are tagging along with each other, but for the most part, they're all kind of going separately. And then we also see a panel with the egg still on Roger's ship. We also see Gloriosa on Roger's ship, so it seems like she's joining the Rogers Pirates, which good for her, although we know that she doesn't have a happy ending, so I think that her romance with Roger still doesn't amount to anything, unfortunately for her. And we also see the giant egg. What's in the egg, Adam? What's in the egg?
I honestly don't know at this point. Like, we've thought about it like all over the years. Like, people thought it contained like a dragon or maybe like a rock or a giant bird. At this point, I just don't know. Like, but it's still there. Like, it's still a prominent feature on the ship. Like, what's the whole point of it? I don't understand.
What if it's for a giant feast and they're just gonna give everyone omelets? That was a joke.
I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, so
that's like a big mom tier dream.
Big mom tier dream. Maybe that's how they get Elbaf to join their side. They're like, oh, we got a giant egg to feed one of you.
Yeah, a hard-boiled egg. Enjoy it. We've had it on the ship for 50 years.
Okay, moving forward. It's pretty remarkable how similar Roger looks to Ace. In this flashback, it's like very apparent that Ace is Roger's son, don't you think?
My headcanon is that Oda loved Ace's character design so much that even after killing off Ace, he's like, oh, well, I'll just bring Ace back in a flashback as Roger. It's perfect. And I'm on to you, Oda. I see what you're doing. So I think the thing that really is apparent to me, at least with Roger is like really keen on like exploring the world and like learning a lot about it, which I don't really feel like that was Ace's motivation. I felt like Ace just wanted to be stronger. If anything, I see a lot more of Roger's motivations in Luffy than I do in Ace.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think their character designs between Roger, young Roger, and Ace are like striking. Like they're the exact same, except one's got a Whitebeard tattoo on his back.
Sure.
So if we want to talk a little bit moving forward about like the Domi Reversi curse, so as I alluded to a little bit earlier, I think the Domi Reversi is like some form of advanced Conqueror's Haki that uses your Haki to control another user's mind, where like initially, right, Conqueror's Haki is bending others to your will, where I speculated for a while that I believe that some form of Conqueror's Haki would actually allow for mind control, and we see it and it like manifests itself physically, right? So you're literally overpowering the body and the willpower of somebody else with your own. But to a point, like Roger and Garp are sitting around and they're like, oh my god, like he's being mind controlled. There's got to be some way to undo it. I think that is actually a key within Joy Boy and the sun god, right? Which brings
Yeah.
the sun itself is light, brings light to darkness. I think that
Yeah, like I just want to add, we know that in Othello and Reversi, like you can flip pieces one way, but then like the next turn they can also be flipped back. So I do agree with you that there definitely has to be a way to undo it, or even take someone that's just like part of Emu's just on Emu's side naturally and flip them and make them become a white piece effectively.
so I think we're gonna see that, and going back to like the beginning of this episode, right, where we were talking about Big Mom and like the life retreat and the mind control. There's got to be some kind of loophole, and I think the loophole is actually like laughing in like the face of danger, or like
Mm-hmm.
making a joke, or like
Or
getting rid
smiling
of.
before you die.
Yes, exactly. Or even dancing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, right, you have to be able to cast the shackles off of like your vengeance, and that's the only way things are going to change, right? Because if you want to fight and tooth for tooth, it's going to last forever. You have to break the cycle by like really understanding each other and really dropping like these generational traumas and weights, right? So I think Luffy in being like the freest person in the embodiment of the sun in Nika, right? Also now has Bonnie on his side, which can effectually like give anybody else like a Nika cloak, or like literally bring them that freedom
Mm-hmm.
that Luffy has tried to bring all these people, right? So like you literally wipe out the darkness with the sun.
And also, they'll have, if that's the case, they'll have multiple people on the battlefield that are able to flip people to the white side, the white pieces, and Domi Reversi them back. So just like how Emu, once he has a few people that are Domi Reversi under the Domi Reversi spell or curse, if we noticed on Elbaf earlier before the flashback that if a giant was in between Dory and Bragi, they would also get flipped. So I'm thinking that maybe if there's multiple people with Nika abilities and they're in between those two people, they can get flipped back effectively.
I think we're pretty much on the same line of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I imagine it too.
Mm-hmm.
And like it plays a part in like the whole Reversi that we've actually been seeing is emblematic of the whole series.
Yeah.
Now, I just think it's very weird. Like I picked up a piece of like One Piece branded merchandise like a couple years ago, only to find out it was like a Reversi board, but it was like 10 years ago. So like I thought they would just stick the brand name on everything.
Yeah, that's
but
what I was
apparently
thinking
it actually
too.
plays some role in the series.
It's like literally, it was called out like way early on. Like literally even. That's so funny.
It's hilarious. Yeah, so in going forward in the chapter, we see a couple characters that actually call out, like they say that there's like an interesting hockey on the island. I think it was like Scopper and Rayleigh even they commented on this interesting hockey. Now, I think there are like three candidates to what this interesting hockey could be. I think it could be like Emu's hockey itself. I think it could be like some kind of corrupted hockey from reversed rocks. Or I think it could be like an actual combination of the Roger Rocks and like Garp hockey.
Oh, like
which
the,
is
the
like,
Clash.
yeah, so I think that perhaps like maybe that's how you actually fight against like the big bad, is by like all uniting at the end, right? Power of friendship, rah rah rah, that kind of thing.
My
But
thought
I
is
mean,
more so that it's just Emu's hockey controlling rocks. Like that's what I think. That's because like that would make sense that would feel strange to them, because if it's like a combination of different people's hockey, like they've already experienced that before and seen that before multiple times, whereas they've never even heard of Emu before. So like Emu, kind of making his presence on this island via hockey, mind control of both Saturn and of rocks. I feel like that's the strange hockey.
oh, I think that yes, to your point, like if I'm a member of Roger's crew, like I'll know what Roger Rocks and Garp's hockey look like. I think if they're almost like, think of like beams of light, right? Like separate, they're all defined,
Mm-hmm.
but if you put them together, they can create something
Yeah,
entirely new.
I can see that too, and I definitely think there's merit in that. But my thought in this specific reference is that it's emus.
Sure, I understand that, but also to the point too is like Emu showed up like a couple chapters ago in the God Valley flashback, and they had plenty of time to comment on it then. Like, why now? Only why when the three of them are clashing together?
Yeah, maybe they just didn't comment on it earlier, and they didn't have a chance to, and now they're doing it. I don't know. There's many reasons, but yeah, either way, it's still like sort of a mystery of what exactly it could be. But just judging by the context clues, yeah, my thought is still leaning more towards it's Emu Domi reversing and using his hockey with that Domi reverse power that is what they're commenting on. But again, like I'm not saying that you're wrong by any means. I'm just saying that that's what I think it is.
I think that works, but going forward, like Kaido and Big Mom, right? Like Big Mom still feels a certain kind of way about Kaido taking that fruit. And do you think Kaido is having like fruit eaters, like what's the word I'm looking for?
High?
Like, no, do you think he regrets it?
No, remorse. No, definitely not. I think he's very, very satisfied, and their interactions are really funny to me too because Kaido just like shrugs it off. He's like not even concerned about Big Mom because I think he believes himself to be stronger and he can take her on. So he's like, yeah, whenever you want, like try to get it from me, type of energy.
That's like such a kid thing, right?
Yeah.
Because he's like still so young. He's like, whatever. That's future Kaido's problem. But, you know,
I agree.
we see these things tend to happen. Like, you know, you can't run away from your problems forever.
Oh.
And Big Mom even goes to say this is a lifelong debt. What's up?
So the theory that I saw floating around is potentially Big Mom decides to collect on the debt underneath the volcano of Wano. And so maybe now that Kaido's weakened, she uses her soul fruit and steals Kaido's soul and potentially kills him and finds the fruit growing somewhere nearby and finally claims it for herself.
Then what will she do with it is my question.
She has many children.
I mean, at that point, like, she's already been, like, what role is she going to play in the story going further, even with Kaido's fruit? You know what I mean? Like, one of her kids eats the fruit and then is like, oh, well, now I'm here to find Raftail.
Oh, I think that she would probably join in the final fight against Emu, most likely. Because she's seen Emu before, and I think that she would still unite against Emu as in a final battle if push comes to shove and she's still around and able to fight, and she's aware that Emu's around. Like, I think she would want to fight against Emu for sure.
All I want to say is that, do you think Big Mom has really fulfilled her dreams? Because she has aged terribly. And I want to know if that's due to kids or, like, unrequited dreams. But
I think
she should be much happier.
I think it's the dreams. I think that her dream hasn't been fulfilled yet. And I think that it's slipping away from her. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
But man, she aged terribly. One of the things that I did want to just talk about briefly, this is just like a touch point. It doesn't have to be like an actual item. But we do see a panel of Stussy actually. And Stussy's like wearing a hat with like a feather coming out of it. And I just think she looks remarkably like Cavendish in that panel. Like she's even got like the flowing curly blonde hair. So I think we might have a tip-off of who Cavendish's mother is. Not that it matters. I just think it's really interesting, if possible. But if we're talking about parents, right, we also see Whitebeard actually meets up with another pineapple head, and this guy's name is Polo Graham, and he's Marco's father? Like, what? Marco Polo? Like, I don't get it. Like, Oda, are you serious? This is crazy. Like, I'm so happy that you noted that there was a guy that looked like Marco in the background like a couple chapters ago because it really paid off.
Yeah, I think that Marco being last name Polo is pretty funny. And I think that it's like, it makes sense that like someone, you know, like Marco's father. So we know that Marco's really powerful. So someone who's really powerful, their father, good chance that his father is also very powerful as well. So yeah, I think that this is really fun. I like his name. I think it's really cute. Like, his name is Marco Polo. Like, it's just really, really cute. So I think it's just fun, you know. And then this is why I believe it gives more credence to the person that looks kind of like Eustace Kid. I think that person is more likely to be Kid's father after the confirmation that this guy is Marco's father.
Yeah, we're getting to see a lot of parents on the island, right? But just talking about Polo, like he seems really chill. He seems cool. He's like, "Oh, Whitebeard, I heard of you, man. You looking to get off the island? I got a ship for you, bro." And he's like, "No, I'm Whitebeard. I don't need you. Get out of here, right?" So I think it's very cool that he's got the same kind of mannerisms as his son. Well, that's probably
And
where Marco picked it up, right?
I think that like Marco's father, Graham Polo, I think that him and Whitebeard probably ended up being like BFFs, and that's why Marco is so close to Whitebeard too, because he was always like a second father to him growing up. So I think that it just makes a lot of sense, and I think it's great storytelling.
Yeah, I think that pretty much tracks. Moving forward, if we want to talk about more parents prospectively, we actually see in the background of one of the panels with Stussy actually talking to Gonzwi. We see a gentleman in the background with a hat and these weird glasses and a big grin on his face. And this, you might not recognize him, but this is actually Gil Bastard, D. Gil Bastard, if you will. And he's actually foreshadowed to be a member of the Rocks crew. He was from a one-shot Oda drew when he was in high school entitled Wanted. And actually, I believe Gil showed up as a Wanted poster way back in One Piece, like Logtown era, back when we would get Wanted posters with Easter eggs on them. And what's notable about Gil, besides just being there and his overall design, is he has a ghost next to him with a, like, seemingly looks like a pompadour, but like, why would a ghost be chilling with him? Is this a user of the Horo Horo no Mi? He's got a big grin on his face, and he looks very similar to Perona. So do you think Gil Bastard could be Perona's father?
I just think that he had her fruit before her, so I don't necessarily think that he was her father. Also, to note though, was that Gil Bastard was also on Thriller Bark too, so we know that he turned into a zombie after he passed away as well. I just wanted to just mention that. Also, just going back about Miss Buckingham Stussy, it's really like she's just kind of sad about Whitebeard not being around. She's like, where did Whitebeard go? So I think that this might actually be potentially one of the last times she ever like physically saw Whitebeard as well, at least in the past. So this is like the beginning of her dream, like kind of dying to be with him.
Pour one out for Stussy, ladies and gentlemen. It's a shame. But to your point about Thriller Bark, right, and Gil Bastard and Perona being on Thriller Bark, minus the mountain, right, I think there are a lot of visual similarities and geographical similarities between God Valley, Sands Mountain, and Thriller Bark itself,
Yeah.
right? I think it's possible that Moria and Hogback could have found or stumbled upon God Valley and like taken the island for themselves.
Yeah, it actually kind of makes a lot of sense that this island would attract them just because there's just a lot of people that were on the island. So maybe Gail Bastard didn't make it off the island alive, and they found his corpse and like reanimated him to become a like one of their minions. Let's say we'll call them zombies because effectively they're zombies. But yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that this might be where Thriller Bark currently is, because now that we know that God Valley wasn't completely sank, it's just that the two halves of the mountain were cut off, and it's just like a flat island now. I think it's very plausible that with the sea level rising, maybe the island has shrunk a little bit, but or like so the radius has diminished over time with the sea level rising. But yeah, I think that this is very plausible to be Thriller Bark. I like that. I like that theory a lot.
Yeah, I do too. It seems to really track. I also wanted to note that maybe it wasn't the strong fighters that attracted them, but also we know that there were like billions upon billions of berry in treasure on the island itself. So maybe it's one
Sure.
of those things.
There's a lot
Oh,
of
I
things.
heard of an island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's something special about the island that remember a few chapters ago, Garling, when he was pitching it to the Gorosei, saying like, "Oh, the Great One will be pleased about this island." We know that part of that was the fact that there were people of the Davy clan, but maybe there was also something special about the island that we were saying like maybe it has to do with like the island shape being kind of like a tuning fork, or maybe there's something else special and Hogback and Gecko Moria discovered what like something special on the island as well. So I just wanted to bring that forward too.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some kind of special geography element that has to deal with the island, which is why Garling was so quick to point this out towards Emu. Like, the Davy clan is good, but like that doesn't involve needing to commandeer and eradicate everybody on the island, right?
Exactly.
So going forward, I guess talking about parents, we get to see Dragon again, and Dragon actually conducts a mutiny on a Marine ship. He threatens his superior officer with a gun, and he's like, "How much did you know? Are you complicit in this? Like, what the hell?" And then he orders that the Marine ship currently pick up any survivors they find, regardless of whether or not they're slaves or what they've seen, and rescue them. Pretty much ensuring that he's going to get court-martialed out of the Marines, even though he really is doing exactly what he should as a human, regardless of whether or not he's employed by the Marines, right?
Yeah, no, I think that like Dragon has changed significantly from the first time we see him in this flashback to this scene. So before he was just, kind of listening to orders and his superiors, and he didn't necessarily agree with what they were saying and asking him to do, but he was kind of like reluctantly like just kind of like rationalizing things in his head, being like, okay, well, like maybe like we need to like subdue these people for a bigger reason that I'm not aware of. And then as time passes, he realizes, no, like they want us to subdue these people so that they can hunt them down and slay them. So like the further more he learns about the world government and their motives, the more horrified he is about it, and the more it's really emboldened him. Also, he thinks that he failed and didn't save either of the two twins. So that's not the case. We already know that he was able to save Shanks from the world government. But yeah, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I just wanted to point out that very astute readers will notice in the back of 1164, in one of the panels, you actually do get to see a treasure chest with the onomatopoeia of somebody sleeping in it. So we do actually get to see the treasure chest that little baby Shanks is in.
Yeah.
And we know that he actually does get safely off the island.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out which of the Roger crew is holding that chest, because we know that it ends up on Roger's crew, but I couldn't really tell, so I'm not sure. But we do know that it eventually ends up going on Roger's ship. So yeah, I thought that was a really cute addition too. I didn't notice that until you pointed that out to me. But yeah, I really like Dragon's transformation throughout this flashback. I think that he is a really great character. He grew so much in these flashbacks too. Like he had like humongous character growth, and it was just really well done.
Yeah, I think he's done really well. I really love Dragon as a character, and I really can't wait for him to actually meet Luffy and them to sit down and have a conversation. I really wonder what their dynamic's going to be like. It's got to be goofy, right?
I think that Luffy won't recognize him as his father necessarily. Like that's kind of how these things kind of go, because he's like, well, we might be blood related, but you were never there for me. Like, I didn't even know that. Like, I've heard of your name even, but I didn't even know that, like, we were necessarily related other than the last name. But Luffy's kind of... I don't think... Yeah, he's silly. He might not even recognize that that's his father, even with the same last name.
I don't think Luffy would really care at that point. I think he's, like, gone, right? Like, my dad's a great man. Like, there's nothing he could do wrong.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly.
I think... a part of freedom is being forgiving too.
True.
Right.
True.
So I think Luffy would be forgiving in that sense. But if we want to talk about character relations a little bit more, Garp and Roger teaming up. Like Garp's been chasing after Roger for practically his whole life, and now they're joining forces. And Roger's like, "Oh, Garp, you'd make a great pirate. You know, if you ever get tired of the Marines, come look me up. I'll make you my second mate." That kind of thing. But Garp's like, "Nah, I'll never become a pirate. If I became a pirate, then who would protect the Marines?" Like, what? Protect the Marines from what, Ed? The Marines?
Protect the Marines from Emu and the Gorosei and the Celestial Dragons. All these horrible people that are slaying innocent people for no reason other than to have fun. I think that Garp, like I've said many times before, he's trying to change the world government from the inside out. And like real change, you can't only attack it from one angle, right? You can't. Sometimes you can't just attack something and try to break it down from the outside. Sometimes you might need a little help from the inside as well. And I really do think that that is what Garp's dream is to see a world government and see their Marines that are actually like just and for the sake of like good and peace and not, this evil conquering entity.
I could see that. I'm still not completely convinced that Garp is redeemed yet. It's just he still seems so complicit, even if he's fighting against like Emu and by extension Rocks. Like I really love his character. I just he's done some bad things, man. Some things I just don't agree with right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's also a panel that mentions that the records that were kept by G11 and CP6 concerning the top secret level S special mission on God Valley are sparse. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. It makes sense. So they're basically hiding all of the records of what just transpired. I mean, just the fact that there was a great hunt happening on this island alone, would make it so that there shouldn't be any records of it. So I'm thinking that basically the world government intercepted any of the reports that were gathered and kind of wiped it clean.
Yeah, they really completely wiped out the whole history on God Valley because exactly what they did was like gross. Besides the fact that they faced off against, the Pirate King, Rocks, and one of their own, right? They also don't want to let out the fact that they were hunting humans on that island for whatever their own means were, just for competition. But I did want to postulate, too, one of the things that I think that Garp could be protecting the Marines from is actually, like, the world government. But I think in, like, a more physical sense, right? I think that perhaps Emu and the other members of, like, the higher echelons of the world government might need to sacrifice people for like their blood or their chaos magic. And I think if they can't find like civilians, they're going to sacrifice Marines, right?
Yeah, so
or criminals.
I agree that like so someone like that person who reported on the hunting, the great hunt by the the celestial dragons and the gods knights, that person mysteriously vanished. Most likely he was if the blood sacrifice theory is right, then most likely he was a blood sacrifice to Emu. And sorry, going back to the whole records of God Valley mission being sparse, this is just more like par for the course of the world government, because we already know that they're trying to get rid of all the history of the Void Century, and they've been really successful at it for the most part. So this is just what they do. If there's something that looks bad, that makes their image look bad, or that like shows like what their actual true intention is, they just go out and delete it and make sure that nobody knows about it, just to keep that under wraps and keep their secrets hidden, which keeps their power in play.
Yeah, to your point, this is just doing what they've always done, but now we're just learning about like a recent event in which they've done it, and they're so efficient we didn't even know until like chapter 1000.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We had no idea what is a God Valley. But if we want to go a little bit forward and talking about like Garp and Roger teaming up and fighting against Rocks, right? So they talk a little bit about the hockey, and they're like, oh, well, I'm throwing armament at him, and it's covered in my Conqueror's hockey, and I'm still not doing anything. And Garp's like, oh, well, he's using armament and Conqueror's hockey as well, so you just gotta put some more force behind it. I think it's pretty funny that Garp is like, oh, well, if hitting it doesn't work, then just hit it harder, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's like another type of hockey that they're talking about, right? So whether or not it's a branch or like a 3.0, I think there's another type of hockey.
I think this is another
which we're going to see in the series.
Yeah, I think this is another branch of Conquerors. So I think that for Conquerors, there's like the base branch is going to be like, making everyone like pass out around you. And I think the next branch, one of the branches is imbuing the hockey into things. So like imbuing it into your sword, imbuing it into your fist for attacks, imbuing it into a poneglyph, imbuing it into a person, which that might be what the Domi Reversi is. So I think that that's one branch of hockey as well.
Oh, like physically imbuing hockey?
Physically imbuing hockey into objects or people.
I think so. I think that's what the poneglyphs are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know if that's like a Conqueror's hockey, but I think the poneglyphs definitely are. like stones with hockey in them. That's why like Roger, even though he couldn't read the poneglyphs, he could understand them because he had the voice of all things. He was a hockey sensitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he knew the willpower that created the stories that were on the poneglyph, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it might not necessarily be conquers, but we do know that you can imbue conquers on your weapon and on your fist, which is what they're doing. And we know that I think that you can probably imbue conquerors as part of your armament as well to defend against it as well. That's a theory. I don't think that it's necessarily proven, but yeah.
I think so. If you think about that panel that we talked about with Whitebeard blocking the sword attack, right? Like he could have just put like Conqueror's Hockey like on his arm too.
I think that
with
makes
his
sense.
Gura powers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But what I was saying is I think that there's like another technique that goes beyond like an armorer's coated with.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Hockey.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so I think that this will be like potentially a different branch, like you're saying, or whatever. But I do think it's going to be tied to Conqueror specifically because, I mean, this is the final boss, right? Emu is going to be either the penultimate or ultimate bad guy in the series. And it makes sense that you need to use the strongest type of hockey in order to combat it. So I do think that it's going to be Conquerors related specifically.
Strongest boss, crossing my fingers for no Kagura. But I do think that there is going to be like a technique that surpasses like armorers and conquerors. So if we think about like this final attack, right? Garp is like, oh, well, you just got to hit it harder. And they're like, oh, well, now we're going to put so much force behind it. Like, we don't care. This is going to be self-destructive. I don't care if we kill the island, whatever. So I'm going to talk about the final attack a little bit before I get to my point. So we see that Roger uses an attack called Kagutsuchi's Ace, and he really hockeys up his sword. He coats it with armorers and conquerors, and he hits somebody with like a volley of slashes.
Wait, and he named his son after this attack, if you think about it, which is kind of cool. And So Kagutsuchi means it's a Shinto god of fire, and Ace is Fire Fist Ace. So it's so fitting. Sorry, continue. I interrupted you.
It really is. No, that was perfect. And then Garp unleashes an attack called Infinitum Explosion. He hockeys up his fist and he coats it with like armors and conquerors, and then he uses like a Gatling attack, similar to like what Luffy does.
Yep.
So my point is, in that final panel that we see like Rocks getting hit by these attacks, Rocks almost looks immaterial, similar to how Emu did, right? Just dodging all the attacks and becoming like smoke almost. So I think similar to how Armament canceled like Logia's, I think you have like this new way of dodging that can only be conquered by like this super hockey that we see that's going to be even stronger than Armament and Conquerors. I agree. Do you think it's like a new type of hockey entirely, or do you think it's just like a new branch?
My thought is it's a new branch. Maybe you combine all three, Armament, Observation, and Conquerors, into one form of hockey, and like. But yeah, either way, I think it's a new type of hockey we haven't seen before necessarily. Like other than maybe Emu is demonstrating this via, not getting hit with rocks, I should say. But yeah, I don't think that we've actually seen anybody use an attack like that before.
So here's my thoughts on hockey, at least. I think that Observation is the hockey of the mind. Armament is the hockey of the body. Conquerors is the hockey of the soul, right? If you think about Conquerors, right, it's like, it's literally your willpower. It's your soul overpowering like the will and the soul of somebody else. I think you have to be adept in Armament and Observation in order to have Conquerors, right? Because like if you're not of sound mind and body working in harmony, then you can't really fulfill like the full potential of your soul.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, my best guess, like I said before, is a combination of all three of those types of hockeys in one attack, and that's what Luffy will need to learn in order to defeat Emu. And like you were alluding to, so Rocks is kind of ethereal looking, even though he's getting slashed or whatever. It's very reminiscent of the combined attack against Saint Saturn with Emu on top. So I don't think Rox is dead. I really don't. I think that he survived this. I think that he was defeated, sure. But I think he's still going to be around, and I think that he might be around for the final battle. What do you think?
I think we'll have to see. Perhaps he can still be on the bottom of the ocean, just waiting to be summoned once again.
Exactly.
I think it would be really traumatic for Blackbeard to have to fight against his dad that's cursed demon form. Ugh.
Absolutely. But also, like, I'm sure that this cursed demon form of his father is still in Rox's nightmares. Like, maybe that's part of the reason why he can't, quote unquote, sleep. Yeah, so anyway, I do think, like, I'm like less, I'm not sure. Like, there's something going on with this, though, because this is not a definitive Rox is dead, right? Like, we see a panel of him after the attack where he's just, like, sweating a bunch. But it doesn't look like he's dead at all to me.
Yeah, I don't think Rox has been defeated. It looks like he's still crying. So we will definitely have to see. He kind of goes immaterial and kind of fades to black in a bit. But whether or not Blackbeard actually gets to meet his father is still yet to be seen. But this has been episode 45 of the Void Century podcast, going over chapters 1164 entitled Davy Blood and 1165 entitled Echo of One Piece. And thank you once again for sailing with us. That's it for this voyage of the Void Century podcast. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you sail for One Piece content. Catch our bite-sized theories and lore on TikTok and Instagram Reels. Until next time, whether you're seeking the poneglyphs or unraveling the history behind the Will of the D, listen to the voice of all things and we'll see you on our next voyage.